Come on in, everyone. Come on in because we are here to review Married at First Sight, Season 19, Episode 8. And y'all, I am really enjoying this season. I'm only on Episode 8. I know some of you are a little further along, but I'm trying to take it a little bit slower only because I want to digest this season a little bit better, y'all, because I really had a lot more to talk about, but I haven't been able to talk about it because these episodes are moving so fast. I like that it's not drawn out for 10 months like the old episode, but I don't know. Maybe we swung too far to the other side. What do y'all think? Can we get only maybe 2 episodes a week, please? Or am I just the slow one? But anyway, I want to say that this episode, I am calling it, I Don't Love You Yet. I don't love you yet, because we had a whole lot of people who said this episode, I don't love you yet. We had Will tell Britney, I don't love you yet. We had Derek tell Megan, I don't love you yet. And we had Pat also tell Rhonda in more ways than not, I don't love you yet. In fact, I hope Pat tells Rhonda, I don't love you now or ever. This ain't gonna work. But I'm going to tell you, the one that I am most interested in talking about this episode is Megan and Derek. Because let me tell you, I know we were calling Megan the Ice Princess from the very beginning. And as we've been going along, I've been saying that, Megan and Derek are a lot alike, more in more ways than one. I think initially there's a tendency to think they're different because of the way that they express their emotions. But yet, when you look at underlining parts of them, they're very similar. And Derek showed we call him Megan the Ice Princess, but Derek showed a bit of his Ice Prince this episode. And, it picked up on episode 8. They were still talking about why Megan was mad about the comment that Derek made about his friend, which was Scott. I was calling him Chuck last week. But Megan basically was saying that it wasn't a safe space for her and she was triggered. Well, we know you was triggered, Megan. The problem with Megan is not necessarily her emotions or her feelings. Her problem, which is the problem with a lot of people, is how do you express your emotions or feelings so that you're actually heard by your partner and that you actually don't disrupt the progress in the conversation. Megan's process of communicating, which is so horrible, she actually disrupts the problem solving because now everyone has to attend to her irrational behavior, whether she's screaming or yelling or having a nasty tone or walking into other rooms and slamming the doors. One of the things I commended Derek was that he was good at de-escalation. However, that didn't mean that Derek was without fault. Like, he's good at not getting too far out of himself with his emotions. But when you look at some of the things that Derek does, he too is very, very stubborn, which was interesting because we look at Megan as a hothead, but we might look at Derek as very, very cool, calm, and collected. But let me tell you, there's this stubborn side of Derek. And that's kind of what I was talking about in earlier episodes. I was getting the impression that Derek was a runner. And that was why he bounced around from country to country, woman to woman, because he actually didn't know how to sit in there and solve problems. He actually wanted his way. And that's just as much as Megan wanted her way. What was interesting was Derek was really excited to go see Megan's mom. Megan's mom, I look at Megan's mom as bossy. And even Derek mentioned how she communicates. She slaps people pretty hard on the shoulder, on the back. But Derek said he liked it. He liked that toughness that Katie, is that her mom's name? Katie tended to have. He didn't shy away from it because I actually believe it's a little bit closer to who Derek's personality is. Now listen, Derek and Megan have been having this discussion about having kids, right? And Derek has accused, in a lot of ways, Megan of not being really enthusiastic about having kids. And Megan has expressed that she's afraid to have children because of the potential pain of having children. Now, did Derek actually speak to Megan's when she was talking about her pain? Did he really do anything to comfort her? Did he really offer her any solutions or even just hearing her out. No, what Derek really actually did was stuck to his guns. And he said it. He said, this is a non negotiable. I'm not going to negotiate on having children. I'm not going to negotiate on having a large family. He drew a line in the sand. Then what Derek did was Derek went to Megan's family house. Nice house, beautiful view. You can tell that Megan's family is not hurting for money at this point in time. They had their nice catered dinner, and I think Derek liked that. Derek enjoyed that. But what did Derek do when he got to Megan's house? What he actually did was he solicited the help of Katie, the mother, and the father to actually push his agenda more with Megan. Now remember, Megan is the one afraid of birthing children. She's afraid of the pain. Megan is the one saying, I want one children, I want more. What Derek did, when I told you about Derek, is he likes his own way. He not only was putting more pressure on Megan, he also went to the family, and also in a lot of ways, he solicited the family's help to put pressure on Megan to move forward with having children sooner. In fact, by the time that this dinner was over, all of a sudden now, Derek, the mother, and the father came out with a plan that Megan needs to start having children within the next 3 months. In fact, the parents wanted a grandchild by December. I don't know what month we were in. So get this. So when we talk about Megan being strong-headed, Derek being strong-headed, the truth of the matter is they may have different ways of muscling through to get what they want. But in the end, they're both formidable forces. And now that I see Derek's sort of, he wants his way too, I'm not too mad at the fact that he's with a woman who might be able to draw the line a little bit better. Because if Derek had another type of woman, I see a potential, honestly, y'all, where he could possibly maneuver that woman so easily that she could get lost in the sauce of Derek. Lost in the sauce of Derek. But in the end, as Megan said, we're kind of already trying for children because we aren't even using protection. And that's when Derek said, yeah, let's go to the bedroom right now and let's go ahead and start trying to have children now. Let's work on it, which was interesting because as they were looking back on that wedding, the photos, and Derek and Megan were sitting together. Megan was sitting on his lap. Megan was sort of, that outer shell of Megan is coming down. She's wrapping her hands around Derek. And at that moment, she tells Derek that she loves him. And there is complete silence. Complete silence. He doesn't say it back. The Ice Prince doesn't say it back. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't even speak to it. He doesn't even give a consolation prize that says, I'm really growing in love with you too. He actually is very stoic, very Ice Prince ways. And I think to myself, I say, well, wait a minute, Derek. You're up here pressuring this woman to have a baby with you, to start working on the baby tonight in the bedroom, have a baby in 3 months to 6 months, but you haven't even been able to tell her that you love her? Interesting. Now, Megan has been, I believe, more forthcoming about her insecurities and about how she doesn't want to get hurt. And that is the explanation of her wall. At least she's able to say, the reason I have this wall, the reason I'm being an ice princess is because underneath it all, it's a real fear of being hurt. But hey, I'm starting to find out with Derek that Derek too has some fear. He's got a wall too. But what he's willing to do is I want what I want first. Then after I get what I want, I guess, Megan, I'll give you what you want, which is I love you. So you're planning the baby, Derek, what you want, the family, you're planning all of that before you even tell Megan you love her. How is that creating a safe space where you're pressuring a woman to have a baby with you in 3 to 6 months, but you haven't even told that woman that you love her? And see, when he didn't do that, It really, really triggered Megan because when that producer started saying, "Oh, so you told Derek you love him," Megan went back into her shell and said, "I didn't say it. Find it on the tape. I'm not going to admit to it." And then later on at that dinner that they were having with all the friends, Megan lied to everyone and said that she and Derek were in the same place, even though we saw that they weren't. Megan was willing to go back in her shell, to put back up her wall, to protect herself because Derek could not meet her. And do we believe it's because Derek doesn't like Megan? No, it's the same thing when I said Megan's wall was not because she didn't like Derek. She liked Derek, but she was afraid. And now when I look at Derek, I don't think it's because he doesn't like Megan, right? Because he said over and over again, the sex is wonderful. He loves her family. He's not shying away from the parts of Megan that we thought we were talking about were red flags. He's not shying away because what Derek knows, what we weren't seeing earlier on, was he's just as much an ice prince as Megan is an ice princess. And what he knew about himself was he's typically the one in a relationship running and putting up walls. So he wasn't afraid of a Megan. He wasn't afraid of a Megan at all because I believe Derek is just as much a formidable opponent when it comes to being an ice prince and ice princess. He really, really is. But that's what I got to say about Derek and Megan. When I'm going to play my introduction video and when we come back, we are going to talk about the other couples, Rhonda and Pat, and Jaylen and Josh, and also Will and Britney, because there was a lot of I don't love you yet too. So see y'all in a minute. So we are back to talk about Rhonda and Pat because in this episode, Pat was another person who said, "I don't love you." He just told Rhonda, "You are special." She sure is special. Special ed. She is special ed. She is special. But on this anniversary, Rhonda gave herself a pat on the back because she woke up early to watch a space launch with Pat. Pat was thankful for it. Rhonda, on the other hand, I feel like she'll do it this time, but will she continue to do it? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think Rhonda realizes at this point that she's really coming off selfish. So she's trying. I get that she's trying, but I just don't have faith to believe that Rhonda will ever get to the place she needs to get to in order to be a good partner for Pat. Now, Rhonda knows how to throw a party. She had everybody over. And we saw Rhonda have everybody over to her house. She had a nice catered dinner, a nice setup, beautiful. You know, one thing I like about this episode, I actually liked integrating the older couples with the newer couples. You know, the older couples are more well established. They have nice homes. They're able to invite people over and have dinner parties. And I think it balances it out. I think it makes the younger people level up a bit. And I also think it makes the older people, relax a bit more and bring out more of their youthful side to them. I think it's a nice blend. I hope they continue this going forward of blending the ages together so that we can actually also see, is there growth between younger people and older people? Or are there some older people who also seem just as much immature as younger people, i.e. Rhonda? Rhonda has been emotionally stunted in her life. She has not been challenged the way that she needed to be challenged. And as a result, she's now 62, having to learn lessons about relationships that she really should have learned in her 30s and 40s. It's unfortunate, but I think it's a good thing to have in front of young people so young people can look at themselves at 30 and say, do you want to be a Rhonda at 60, or do you want to do the work now in your 30s and 40s so that once you get to be 60, you're not where Rhonda is? Rhonda and Pat went to this outdoor music fest, Am I the only one that felt that that really wasn't Pat's vibe? That he was just kind of pretending like he was enjoying that sort of crowd? It felt a little hippie-ish. I don't get the idea that that's Pat's crowd. Pat's crowd, I believe, is more nerdy. Rhonda's crowd is more artsy, more eclectic, more hippie-ish. I still believe Pat would prefer to be around nerds, and Rhonda is not a nerd, because typically a lot of nerds, they like to learn, they like to listen, because listening is a big part of learning in any facet. If you're going to learn, you have to be able to be a good listener so that you can learn from someone. Rhonda's a talker, which means she's not really into learning. She's into talking and then teaching you. That's why she likes to quiz Pat and say, after she's talked and talked and talked about herself, she quizzes Pat and asks Pat, what have you learned? Well, Pat also wants to know, Rhonda, what have you learned? Because you're so busy talking about yourself, so busy wondering what I've learned about you. What have you learned about Pat? You see, Rhonda is not only a poor listener, that tells me she's not a good learner. She's not a good learner. And she goes over in the corner after she's going on about herself, and she's saying she's having some deep moments where she's starting to realize she's going backwards again with Pat, that he turns every conversation to be about him, because I believe he is trying to muscle in some facts about himself, because Rhonda takes so much space in the room that in order for you to talk about yourself, even for a little while, you actually do have to move her out of the way. You have to push her out of the way, because what Rhonda doesn't do, she doesn't learn how to step aside. She doesn't know how to make room for people. So as a result, when you do want to interject, when you do want to talk, you have to do it in such a forceful way, because Rhonda does not give you space. She does not volunteer the space. And that's what Rhonda doesn't get. Rhonda feels like she's being muscled out of her space of talking. And maybe that feeling is real with Rhonda. But Rhonda has to know is she's got to learn to leave the space on her own, because if you don't leave, people will kick you out of those spaces, Rhonda. But Rhonda is still blaming Pat for her feelings. The fact that Pat wants to also talk about himself, she still doesn't quite understand that the problem, the real problem, lies with her. And if she only looked at her history and realized that the problem she has now is a problem she's had in past relationships, she will realize that she is the contributing factor. She's the factor that's there all the time. Pat is new. She's only known Pat for what, a month. Pat is not the reason she feels this way in all her relationships. She's the reason. She's got to take hold of her own life, take responsibility for the way that her relationships are going, and take responsibility to change it. But it's hard for a person to change when they don't even recognize that they're the problem. It's hard for a person to change when they're not willing to listen and learn. That's Rhonda's biggest problem. And now we move on to Jaylen and Josh. Although these two people have told each other that they love each other, they've hit a little bump in the road. Now, all of a sudden, Jaylen is even questioning whether or not this red flag she says she sees with Josh is one in which should make her run. Well, Jaylen, listen, I've said about Jaylen and her mother, Belinda, they are both very, very fearful ladies. They lead with their fear, constantly leading with their fear. And one of the things that Josh has worked on with Jaylen is not having a fear of doing things. This episode, they jump out of a plane. She confronts her fear. But Jaylen and her mom, Belinda, are fearful in a lot of areas. They're not just fearful in adventure, they're also fearful in their emotions. And when you lead with fear, you're easily spooked, right? And when you're easily spooked, it automatically creates scenarios in which you want to run very, very fast. Jaylen has always been very fearful in her emotions. And in this particular episode, she also got very, very fearful of because of something that would happen with Josh and his friends. Now, the way that Jaylen tells the story is that, well, let me say this. Prior to that meeting up with the friends, the first thing that spooked Jaylen was the rewriting of the vows. Okay. This is when you know you're dealing with a fearful person because they turn everything that happens to be about them because they're always so scared. They look at everything as sort of an attack on them or a threat to them. So when Josh was sitting there struggling with writing vows, the first thing Jaylen thought of was he was struggling with writing vows because he doesn't really have the real words to tell Jaylen that he loves her and that possibly he doesn't really love her. Why do you go there? Why do you immediately believe that the reason Josh was struggling rewriting vows was because he didn't love you? She never gave consideration that the reason why Josh was struggling rewriting vows had nothing to do with her, but it had something to do with maybe an issue with Josh. Not about his feelings for Jaylen, but maybe he's not a good writer. Maybe he's dyslexic. Maybe he has a learning disability. Maybe he doesn't know how to spell very well, right? But Jaylen, because she's a fearful person, she immediately took any sort of shortcomings in Josh to be about her. And I don't believe it was. I don't believe the reason why Josh was struggling rewriting vows was because of her. And what Jaylen did was she turned that entire moment to be about her instead of possibly looking to see if it was really something wrong with Josh. Instead, what she did was she kept pushing Josh and pushing him. So imagine that Josh has insecurities around his spelling, his writing, a learning disability, or dyslexia. Because Jaylen spent so much time pushing him, making him feel worse, because why? Because she was insecure. But yet, there are so many other areas in which Josh affirmed her, told her he loved her. Think about it. This entire episode or season, Josh has been affirming Jaylen. And in one episode where he falls short when it comes to this writing, she still looks for him to affirm her, and she doesn't look for a moment to say, maybe this is a moment that I need to affirm him. This is the same thing Belinda does. Belinda needs so much affirming from Chad all the time. They're such really fearful women that people have to constantly affirm them, and they don't always look for situations in which the other partner may be the weaker vessel in that moment. So now Jaylen's feelings are hurt because she's thinking the reason he can't write a vow is because he doesn't really love her and that he's been lying to her all this time, that his feelings aren't real. Then she goes to this dinner with his friends, and now she's on edge. She's on guard. She's scared. She's spooked. She's going to start looking for more moments. Then all of a sudden she finds out that Josh, one of Josh's exes, who he said he would stop following, and that ex, stop following that ex, she finds out that that ex DM'd Josh, and Josh then replied to the ex. And what she said was, you lied to me, Josh. You told me you were going to stop following the ex, and you didn't. And Josh is saying, I didn't lie to you. I'm not hiding anything. Here's the part I didn't understand. Young people, somebody let me know. Can't you DM a person even though you stop following them? Can't you still see their message? I'm not a big social media fan, but I believe it's happened to me. Now, when someone DMs me and I don't follow them, at that moment, I think I have to accept something or talk to them, but it doesn't mean that Josh did not unfollow that woman. I don't know what happened, but imagine a scenario where Josh did unfollow the ex and the ex noticed it. And the ex said, wait a minute, why is Josh all of a sudden unfollowing me? So the ex decides to DM Josh to ask questions. What's going on? Where have you been? I haven't heard from you. Should Josh have just ignored the ex? Should he had not written her back and say, hey, I'm in a serious relationship now? We still have not even heard what Josh messaged the ex. The way that Jaylen, because she was spooked earlier, was as if Josh should not have talked to the ex at all. But what's wrong with Josh having a conversation with the ex and telling the ex, hey, listen, I know we've been following each other, but I'm not going to do it anymore. What's wrong with having that conversation? Well, if you're already spooked, if you're already fearful in relationships, you're not thinking rational. You're not able to have a rational conversation because all you want in that moment are for your fears to be squashed, right? And what I'm wondering, because we didn't really get to see it, I got more questions. I need to know, was Josh lying? Was Josh having a goodbye conversation with the ex? Or was Josh flirting with the ex? I need to know. But I'm not going to jump to conclusions yet, because what I know about Jaylen and her mama are that they are both very fearful people and they lead with fear, and they overwhelmingly need you to calm their fears, but they're not often giving you consideration on what's going on in your life. So I'm going to need to see that. I'm going to need to see the follow-up to that conversation. And then we got to see the episode with Britney and Will. And Will had to tell Britney at that dinner, I have definitely not said that he's in love with Britney. I know they went to this live wrestling match with Mark Henry because he's a walking legend. And Mark Henry had to tell these two, listen, marriage is harder than wrestling. And Britney told Will there's no doubt in her mind that she wants to be with him. And Will said that things are going well, but things can change. And Britney says, you don't feel the things that I feel. And as a result, he does not give her the validation she said that she deserves and she needs. Well, Britney, if he's not ready to say those words to you, then what you're asking for is for him to lie to you. You see, you've got to be willing to be able to handle the truth. You know what I mean? Everyone can't just do what you want, right? Sometimes you've got to be able to manage also your own emotions. One thing I keep seeing with Britney and Will is that Britney has a lot of conversation with Will about his feelings for her. If you listen to a lot of her questions, most of her questions are about how he feels about her. But what I don't really hear Britney asking sometimes are just questions about learning who Will is as a person. Will has told us he's a sapiosexual. And one of the things I think where these two are missing each other is that they both are asking questions, but they're asking different questions. And those different questions are hitting each other differently. When Britney asks Will questions, it's typically about making her feel better, about how do you feel about me, right? And Will typically ask Britney questions about her in general, as if he's more trying to learn about her. And when Britney is keep asking Will about his emotions for her, I could see how that could make Will feel about, are you interested in me as a person? Or are you just interested in me in terms of trying to figure out what you need to do to make me like you more or to fall in love with you? And what I see with Will is withholding. He is absolutely withholding. And I think he's withholding. One is because I think, not because I don't think that he is attracted to Britney. I think what it is he doesn't see Britney meeting him where he wants to be met in terms of her willing to get to know him. So I do see Will putting up a wall. And I think he's starting to get a bit tired of it, to be honest with you. I'm really starting to see that Will is actually starting to move in a different direction. But if Britney could express more curiosity in Will as a person and not Will as a tool to give her what she wants. Britney is handling Will like he's a business deal, like she want to close the business deal. Let me figure out what I can sell you, And when I want to sell it to you, then you'll purchase me. That's why she was first leading with a lot of the intimacy and sex. Let me sell you this sex and then you'll want to purchase me. She keeps asking Will, what do you want so that you will want to purchase me, Will? And what she's not doing is she's not trying to get to know Will as a person. And I think that's where these two are missing each other. It's unfortunate because I think if they could change the way they connect, if they could change the way they communicate to each other, these two might be able to find their way to each other. They really could. But right now, they are absolutely missing each other. And it's actually kind of sad to watch. The last couple we're going to talk about are Belinda and Chad. And once again, Belinda is continuing on and on with her constant need for validation based on the fact that she was cheated on by that ex-husband. Like I said, she and Jaylen have a lot of things alike, and more than likely, Jaylen unfortunately picked up a lot of fear and insecurity from her mother. Belinda is talking about changing her name. She's talking about, it's almost as if sometimes Belinda brings up, I believe, almost sort of petty things, to be honest with you. But she's coming around slowly. Slowly, she's coming around. And Chad is all in. He's giving her the constant reassurance. And right now, we haven't seen any mistakes that Chad has made. But I tell you, if Chad makes one mistake in validating Belinda, she's going to be just like Jaylen. They are fearful in love and they will be spooked very, very, very easily. And Jaylen is very happy to see her mom with a Chad because what Jaylen is saying that she's never even seen this sign of her mom growing up because the mom was with a cheating husband and she probably felt insecure all the time. But now she's feeling secure with Chad, right? Now she's starting to feel secure with Chad. We'll have to see. I hate to see if Chad makes a mistake because that Belinda, I'm telling you, she always seems as if she's got one, I'm not going to say one foot out the door, but she always seems like she's got at least a couple of toes out the door waiting for him to make a mistake. But so far, he's doing all the things right. But we know this isn't sustainable. He can't be perfect. He can't do everything right. And when he does mess up, will Belinda give him grace? Will Belinda give him mercy? Or will Belinda's constant need for validation and her trauma be triggered so much that she also will start to turn away like we see Jaylen doing this episode? I don't know, y'all. But that's all I got for episode 8. I'm going to go watch the other episodes and I will see y'all soon. Okay, bye.